The allure of the unknown, the thrill of discovery urban exploration holds a unique appeal for those brave enough to venture into forgotten places. But beneath the surface of crumbling concrete and rusted steel, darkness lingers. Urban exploration can be thrilling, but sometimes it can turn into a real-life nightmare. Today we bring you 3 terrifying true stories from urban explorers who encountered the unimaginable. The air hung heavy and still as Liam approached the imposing gates of Cranbrook Mental Asylum. A seasoned urban explorer, Liam had navigated countless abandoned structures, but Cranbrook held an especially unsettling aura. Looming against the twilight sky, the asylum seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy, a palpable sense of unease that sent chills down Liam's spine.
Undeterred, I scaled the wrought iron, my boots crunching on the gravel drive leading to the main entrance. The asylum's interior was a chilling tableau of neglect and decay. Dust motes danced in the faint rays of moonlight, filtering through shattered windows, illuminating peeling paint and rusted medical equipment scattered across the floor. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something vaguely metallic and unsettling.
Liam's footsteps echoed in the eerie silence as he made his way down a dimly lit corridor, each step amplifying the building's oppressive atmosphere. As Liam ventured deeper into the asylum's labyrinthine corridors, the feeling of being watched intensified. He paused, his senses on high alert, listening for any sound that might betray another presence.
A soft, almost imperceptible shuffling sound reached my ears, seemingly emanating from the far end of the hallway. Heart pounding, I cautiously moved toward the noise, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The shuffling grew louder, accompanied now by a low guttural moan that sent a wave of goosebumps rippling across my skin. I rounded a corner, my flashlight illuminating a doorway at the end of the hall. The sounds were coming from inside.
With a deep breath, Liam slowly pushed the door open, the rusty hinges groaning in protest. The room beyond was a former patient ward, rows of rusted beds lining the walls, their mattresses ripped and stained. The air was thick with dust and the stench of decay. The shuffling and moaning had stopped, replaced by an unnerving silence. Liam swept his flashlight across the room, his heart pounding in his chest.
Suddenly, a dark figure darted across the far end of the room, vanishing into the shadows before I could get a clear look. Adrenaline surged through my veins. I was not alone. I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness, but there was no response. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end as I slowly approached the spot where I had seen the figure disappear. I could feel my senses heightened, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind through the broken windows, sending shivers down my spine.
As Liam reached the end of the ward, he noticed a door slightly ajar, the peeling paint revealing the word treatment scrawled in faded black lettering. A cold draft emanated from the open doorway, carrying with it the faint scent of ozone and something else, something akin to rotting flesh. Hesitation gripped Liam, his intuition screaming at him to turn back, but curiosity, that insatiable thirst for the unknown, overrode his better judgment.
I pushed the door open, my flashlight beam piercing the darkness within. The treatment room was small and cramped, its walls lined with shelves stacked high with dusty medical supplies. A rusty examination table occupied the center of the room, its leather restraints cracked and worn. The air was thick with the smell of decay and something else, something metallic and sharp, like blood.
The old Trenton Knitting Factory stood as a grim monument to the city's industrial past, a sprawling complex of brick and steel, now silent and shrouded in shadow. It was the kind of place that whispered tales of forgotten tragedies and restless spirits, a beacon to those drawn to the mysteries of the unknown. Tonight, it would become the setting for a terrifying encounter that would test the limits of courage and sanity.
This place gives me the creeps.
Yeah, it's definitely got a vibe.
Jake, ever the skeptic, scoffed.
Come on, guys, it's just an old factory. Creepy, sure, but just a building.
Sarah, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck, as if someone or something was watching their every move. She kept her flashlight beam trained on the darkness ahead, her senses on high alert. They continued deeper into the factory, their path illuminated by a patchwork of flashlight beams. They reached a large open space that had once been the factory floor, its vastness amplified by the darkness and the eerie silence. The air here felt different, colder, heavier, as if a chill wind had swept through the building.
Did you guys feel that?
The others exchanged uneasy glances. They'd all felt it, a sudden drop in temperature, a shift in the atmosphere, as if they had stumbled into an unseen pocket of cold air. But it was more than just the temperature. It was a feeling, a presence, something unseen that sent shivers down their spines. As they stood there listening intently, they heard it, a faint scratching sound like claws on concrete coming from the far end of the factory floor. It was distant, barely audible, but it was there, a sound that sent a jolt of adrenaline through their veins. Jake tried to sound unconcerned, but even he couldn't keep the tremor out of his voice. S3, probably just rats. S2, what was that? Chapter 3. The Ghost Town. The desert sun beat down on the deserted streets of Harmony Gulch, casting long, eerie shadows from the weathered buildings that lined its dusty main street. Once a bustling mining town, Harmony Gulch had long since been abandoned, its inhabitants driven away by dwindling resources and whispers of something sinister lurking beneath its sun-baked surface. Now it stood as a desolate monument to a bygone era, a ghost town in the truest sense of the word.
I had heard tales of Harmony Gulch since I was a child. Stories of sudden disappearances, unexplained phenomena, and the lingering presence of those who had met their untimely end within its borders.
Intrigued and undeterred by the town's sinister reputation, Erin set out to explore its abandoned streets, hoping to uncover the truth behind the legends. As she stepped out of her jeep, the silence of the ghost town pressed in on her, broken only by the sound of the wind whistling through the gaps in the building's broken windows. The air was hot and dry, carrying with it the faint scent of sagebrush and something else, a metallic tang that sent a shiver down her spine.
Armed with my camera, a notebook, and a growing sense of unease, I began my exploration of Harmony Gulch. I wandered down the deserted streets, my boots crunching on the gravel, my eyes scanning the weathered facades of the buildings that lined my path. Each structure seemed to whisper tales of forgotten lives, of hopes and dreams that had turned to dust beneath the relentless desert sun.
The saloon, its swinging doors creaking ominously in the wind, offered a glimpse into the town's once vibrant social scene. Dusty bottles lined the bar, and a lone piano sat silent in the corner, its keys coated in a thick layer of grime. Erin could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the raucous melodies that had once filled the air.
The general store, its shelves bare except for a few scattered cans and boxes, spoke of a time when Harmony Gulch had been a bustling hub of commerce. I imagined miners stocking up on supplies, families purchasing provisions, and children gazing longingly at the few toys displayed near the counter. But as I delved deeper into the town, the feeling of unease intensified.
She began to hear things. Faint whispers carried on the wind, footsteps echoing on the wooden sidewalks even though she was alone. She told herself it was just her imagination, the wind playing tricks on her senses, but a primal fear began to gnaw at the edges of her composure. She reached the town church, its steeple reaching towards the heavens like a skeletal finger. The door creaked open at her touch, revealing a dusty interior bathed in faint sunlight filtering through the stained glass windows.
As I stepped inside, the air grew noticeably colder, and the whispers seemed to grow louder, swirling around me like a vortex of unseen voices. I felt a presence behind me, a cold breath on the back of my neck, and I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest. But there was nothing there, just the empty pews, the dust motes dancing in the sunlight, and the lingering sense that I was not alone.
Erin hurried out of the church, her nerves on edge. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the deserted streets, and the wind seemed to pick up, whistling through the gaps in the buildings with a mournful wail. She decided to head back to her jeep, her earlier excitement replaced by a growing sense of dread. As she made her way back down the main street, she noticed something she hadn't seen before, a single set of footprints in the dust leading towards her. The shadows of forgotten places hold a certain allure, beckoning us to uncover their secrets. But as these stories chillingly illustrate, urban exploration can be an exciting adventure, but always remember to stay safe and be aware of the risks. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. Sometimes the most thrilling experiences are best left to the imagination, lest we become characters in our own terrifying tales. Urban exploration can be an exciting adventure, but always remember to stay safe and be aware of the risks. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales.